Do you have anything to say about materialism?
I have a lot of things to say about materialism. It depends more or less from which point of view you would like to take it, but what I would like to do maybe, first of all, this is maybe some part that could be a bit boring maybe, but it's very important to understand what is materialism. From a pure theoretical point of view. Why are you laughing?
I'm excited.
I can see. I think the best way to understand materialism is to take it with its opposite, which we can call more or less idealism. Okay, those are two words that are famous words, let's say, in the tradition of Western philosophy. We can explain them in a very simple way, and you will see why this explanation is important and why what we are talking about is related to our way of understanding the world, and our way of understanding the world has a direct influence in the way in which we live inside the world, which means in the way that we participate in the whole universe. Okay? If we start just from the very simple experience of perception. Okay. If you take it from the idealism point of view, if you see, this is for example a bottle, okay? If you see this, or even if you touch it, or this feeling that you have, is it in the bottle or is it in your mind? So those are two schools, let's say, of philosophy that are totally in contradiction, and sometimes they can look even the same. Let's take those two extremes. Idealism will say that all our experience, everything that we feel, that we see, that we smell, is in our mind. That outside of our mind, maybe there is nothing, or even if there is something, we don't have any idea about what is there. So that's why it's called idealism. It means that everything is an idea. Idea means here like phenomena, spiritual phenomena. It's not something that you can touch and measure. The other way of seeing things, which is materialism, says that everything is material. There is nothing else in the world except material things. So the bottle is a material thing, my hand is a material thing, my brain is a material thing. And all this material, all those material things in the world, they are all moving, interacting, changing. Materialism is maybe the closest to us today in the way we understand the world and the way we live. So you see, this kind of boring introduction has a direct influence on understanding our culture. So when we say that our culture is materialistic, we understand what would be a culture that is not materialistic. Because otherwise we cannot understand when we say, oh, our culture is materialistic, but what does it mean? Imagine if our culture was idealistic. How would it be? What would be different? What would we do differently? Yeah, this is the question. If you take like the very ancient civilizations, I mean, they are very different, but if we go back in time and we go to maybe the ancestor of religions. We go back to religious beliefs and religious practices that you still find today somewhere and somehow, like for example animism or shamanism. Both are very similar. This is a belief that everything, and when we say everything, there was no plastic bottle back then, so everything is already natural. There was no industries, nothing of this. So everything means every tree, every leaf, every kind of flower, every kind of animal, and every kind of being like us and other animals, they have spirits. And those spirits interact with each other. That's why when you eat this kind of flower or this kind of leaf, it brings you this kind of feeling. When you eat this kind of mushroom, it brings you this kind of feeling, etc., etc. When you meet this kind of animal, you interact with this kind of animal. So the tiger has the spirit of the tiger, the human being has the spirit of the human being, etc.
But idealism is not spiritualism. No, I mean,
I'm not saying that idealism is animism. Animism is a religion.
yeah.
Is a kind of religion. But in animism, there is the belief that things are not material. This is what I'm just trying to say, because we asked the question, what would be a culture that is not materialistic? My answer is, it would be a culture that is, to make it very simple, would be just a culture that is religious. What does it mean here, religious? It means that it believes that there's something behind the surface of things.
Behind the mere materialistic.
Behind the mere materialistic surface of things. Inside the material tree, there is a spirit. There is something else. This is different from idealism. I'm just talking about how would we live in the world if we were not in this materialistic culture. The paradox is that materialism is very also associated with science, because science tries to understand the material world. But as you can see, science itself believes in the fact that behind the surface of things, there is something deeper. I mean, all the discoveries of science, they are, in a certain way, at the opposite of materialism. Because what science discovers are codes, are, equations, mathematical rules, physical laws. I mean, all those things are not material. So that's why I always say that there is, to make it simple, two kinds of materialism. There is this materialism that says everything is material and there is nothing else about what is material. And there is the materialism that goes deeper and says, okay, everything is material. We agree on this. But what does it mean, material? And once you dig into what does it mean, material, you find that the matter itself dissolves or is transformed into something that is maybe not material. Like, for example, in physics, energy. So things are not that simple. You cannot say, oh, we live in a, materialistic culture, but then you start to dig into what does it mean materialistic culture, and you see that our culture is so dominated by science. And then when you dig into science, you find that science is actually a very spiritual activity. Science is extremely spiritual. What is materialistic maybe is the consumerism. Maybe it's material. Oh, I want to have a car, or I want to have... But science has nothing to do with this. Me, what I'm saying is that when we say, when we use this word materialism, or it's a materialistic culture, I say it's not simple. It's not that simple. Especially when we say, oh, our culture is materialistic and it's only based on science, for example. Sometimes you hear this. But if you come to see what is science, science is not necessarily something you can put into a materialistic culture. Science is an intellectual activity by excellence. You see, as I said, the discoveries of science, they have almost nothing to do with the materialistic life as we experience it. Like, for example, the discovery of the DNA. I mean, have you seen DNA before? I mean, you never see this. You don't go on the street and you cross, oh, there's a DNA. It's the same for the laws of gravity, or for laws of physics, or for theorems of mathematics. Those are not materialistic things. Those are not made of matter. Those are codes, those are laws, those are... So, if you continue walking on the path of materialism, you come back to something that is spiritual, or even mystic. This is what I wanted to say.